Welcome to our second session of the morning, Cultural Mindsets Decoded, presented by Nationwide. Please welcome our facilitator, Lori Burgos, Senior Consultant, Enterprise Diverse Marketing at Nationwide, and our speaker, Valeria Aló, President and Founder of Abundancia Consciente.
Buenos dias, good morning. We're so excited that you're here with us today for yet another dynamic session. As the title sponsor of the business series for 10 years, Nationwide is deeply committed to the support and development of Latina entrepreneurs. This year, we partner with a Latina founder to create a series designed for Latinas to take their lives and businesses to the next level by conquering cultural limiting beliefs. All three sessions thus far have been jam-packed with insights and practical ideas to drive meaningful change in our lives. Today, we will be diving into privilege, colorism, and allyship, with the ultimate goal to get us thinking about how we can support each other and unite so that we can rise as a collective to drive greater change. So let's get started by welcoming Valeria Aló, President and Founder of Abundancia Consciente.
Thank you, Lori. Buenos días.
Gracias, Valeria. Real quick, I just wanted to share that before launching her business, she worked for more than 20 years in business development, marketing, and finance in leading companies across 7 countries, including Procter & Gamble, Citibank, and PwC. Valeria is the author of Uncolonized Latinas, which is launching next month, a book that offers a roadmap for Latinas to unlearn cultural limiting narratives and thrive in new spaces. And Valeria, you know that I'm super sad that this is our last session this year. And I say this year because we look forward to continuing this partnership with you. And so with that, take it away. I'm excited to hear what you have for us today, and we'll talk during the Q&A.
Thank you, Lori. Buenos días, everybody. And I just want to start by saying thank you to Lori and to Nationwide. Thank you, Lori, for your leadership and your commitment, and for bringing this important information to our community. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and we put together a presentation for you. And, you know, this will get very interesting. That's what I will say by now. So as you may remember, in the previous 3 sessions, we did a lot of work around our inner dialogue, the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and what's possible for us. But today, this session will be a little different because doing your inner work and working on your self-transformation is not enough. As we have seen in the previous discussions this morning, our community is really ripe for a collective leap. And the only way to take that collective leap is to do it together in a new way. So today we're going to be talking about how do we build the new collective and how do we address and heal and overcome the disease of division and competition that we have in our community. And to start, I want to emphasize a little bit of what we shared in the first sessions, which is our community is powerful beyond our awareness. And the problem is 80% of Hispanics are not aware of our own power. We're 62 million in the US, which is roughly 20% of the population, and we drove 52% of the US population growth in the last decade. We are going to become 111 million Hispanics by 2060. That's roughly 30% of the US. And when you look into our purchasing power, or what we call the Latino GDP, we contribute $2.6 trillion to the US economy every year. If we were our own country, Hispanics in the US, we would be the 8th largest country on the planet. There are like roughly 196 countries on the planet. We would be the 8th largest economy and the 3rd fastest growing. We are absolutely powerful, but we have not been aware of these numbers, of the inner power that we have. We're highly entrepreneurial. As you know, we are the ones driving entrepreneurship in the nation. Particularly our Latinas create businesses at a faster rate than any other population. And that's also part because it's, you know, a way of getting out of poverty for our population. Now, there is what I call a paradox, right? This is not all beautiful numbers. There is also a huge opportunity, a huge gap, because we have not yet realized our own potential. We occupy less than 5% of executive positions, even though we are 20% of the population. We account for only 3% of Fortune 1000 board seats, so where decisions are made, right? And there are only 16 Latino CEOs in Fortune 500. That's 3%, and not one of them is a Latina, not one. Latinas in the US are also paid roughly half of what a white man is paid, and 30% less than white women. And then if you look into entrepreneurship, even though we open businesses at a high rate compared to any other population group, we stay small. We have difficulties accessing to capital and accessing to contracts. So one of the questions that we have been throwing in the last 3 sessions, and I will throw again right now, is like, why is this happening, right? Why this paradox? Why is it that as a collective, we have not embraced our full and exercised our full power? And yes, it is about, definitely, we need to start within, is taking responsibility of our mental narratives, our limiting beliefs, and overcoming our self-worth, feeling inferior, feeling that we can't, that it has to be with sacrifice, that we need to compete with each other to succeed, that there is not enough for all, everything that we have been covering in the last 3 sessions. But there is also this need for a new collective. And I'm here to present you a roadmap. We will take roughly 20 minutes, so it will be brief and fast, but I'm here to present you a roadmap of what that new collective really means. And we have 3 steps. One is to understand our diversity. Second, to heal our colorism, extremely important. And third, to be intentional about building a new collective. And today you will take action. You will walk away today taking action to support building this new collective. So let's start with the first one, understanding our diversity. And when I have been speaking about this topic with many organizations and corporations, I was surprised that we do not know how diverse we are. We know we are diverse, but we really do not know the numbers. So let's take a look. Our culture comes from 23 different countries. 65%, the largest portion of the pie right here, 65% of Hispanics in the US have Mexican ancestry. This doesn't mean that they are immigrants from Mexico. This means that they have any sort of ancestry, either born in Mexico and immigrated to the US, or their ancestors have Mexican blood, 65% of Hispanics, followed by Puerto Rico, El Salvador, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Colombia, and then we have 16 other countries in the other. So we are extremely diverse. What this means also, as you know, each of our countries have its own flavor, which is beautiful. We come from different cultures. We even use the language, the Spanish language, differently. Some words do not mean the same in Argentina, my home country, as what they mean in Mexico. So we have differences, right? We have our own cultures, our own customs, our own way of dressing even, and talking. And that also reflects across the US in different cities. So when you look into how different cities are composed in terms of where different Hispanics living in that city come from, there is a huge variety. That's why we always say one size does not fit all. And if you're a business owner doing business in different parts of the country, it's important to understand the diversity of the Hispanic population. So if you're in Los Angeles or Houston, for instance, the top 2 in the chart, there is a huge incidence of Mexican population. In Orlando, for instance, a huge incidence of Puerto Ricans. Where I am, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, we start seeing more Dominicans. As you move to Miami, a lot of people from Cuba. And in Washington, D.C., this was very surprising to me, and I will be in Washington, D.C. this weekend. We have a lot of people from El Salvador. That's something that I didn't know. So this means that we need to be conscious that our population is not the same across the board. And for companies who do business with Hispanics, it's extremely valuable to realize these differences across the board. Now, 65% of Hispanics are born in the US, and 35% are immigrants. That's a big number. And when you look into our English proficiency, 70% of us say that we are proficient in English, while 30% of Hispanics claim they are less than proficient in English. So 30% represents 20 million. 20 million people in the US, Hispanics, say that they feel more comfortable when being spoken or addressed, or even important information, right? Business information, insurance, whatever it's banking information in Spanish. So that's extremely interesting that, you know, businesses sometimes try to fit a strategy where people are served only in one language. Clearly, what we hear from the market is we still want to be communicated in Spanish, particularly when it comes to important information. And something that is really ripe here for disruption is everything around education, college, because, you know, many colleges are still adjusting this, knowing that many of our Hispanics are first generation into those spaces. It is important, it is super important to support those families in the language that they need to understand the financial commitments they are making and what a life in college really means for their kids and themselves. So some of the spaces across the US are more up to speed or less to speed with the incorporation of Spanish language to serve our community. So we really are not a one-size-fits-all culture, and we have a huge opportunity for inclusion and healing of our own biases towards one another. So when I was writing my book, I came across Hispanics born in the US, Hispanics born abroad, Hispanics who prefer English, Hispanics who prefer Spanish, Hispanics who are more acculturated, Hispanics who have been here for less time. Some of them plan to go back to the country of origin. And then we have our racial composition, Hispanics who look white, like myself, Hispanics who are, you know, all our different ways of referring to our community, Trigueño, Moreno, Black. So we have all this huge variety, but the reality is there is colorism in our community. And we have a huge opportunity to heal our own biases towards one another, our sense of division, those labels that we put ourselves within the community to really start working together differently. So we will address that second topic, healing our colorism. And this is a key topic that right now is being spoken in multiple spaces, and that's a blessing. This is something we need to talk about. This is something we need to express a lot more and feel safe to speak up about. So colorism is a preferential treatment received by those who are lighter skinned compared to those who have a darker skin. And I will say here that after 20 years in the US, I came from Argentina 20 years ago. This year, 2020, is the first year in which I learned that I have a different treatment, that I'm treated different, that it really sunk on me. And you know why? Because by writing my book, I connected with Afro-Latinas. And by listening from their stories and understanding in a safe place what they have been going through when growing up, that allowed me to really see the privilege that I have. That allowed me to see that I had been treating really different from the way they had been treated since they were children. So we come in multiple shades, right? We come in all colors, but we know that those in our community who have darker skin have been treated poorly. And there is data by Pew Research that shows that Afro-Latinos, those who have any sort of African blood in their DNA, have been treated unfairly. They have less access to housing, less access to opportunities. When they go shopping, they have been felt, you know, that they were chased around, that people were suspicious of them, so that security people in those shopping malls were walking behind them checking them out. So they go through different experiences that those of us who are whiter go through. So what do we do with this? First of all, we need to take a look at those Afro-Latinos in our community that are the ones who have been essentially quite invisible and have not spoken up too much up until then. We need to take a look at who they are and really listen to them. So the first step is to understand that 24% of Hispanics self-identify as Afro-Latinos. That's huge. A quarter of our population, Hispanic population in the US, self-identify as Afro-Latinos. But now, what I found really powerful and eye-opening is that when they were asked, which race do you identify yourself with? White, Black, multiracial, any other? Guess what? 39% of them, almost half, said they identified with the white race. So I did research to understand why is this the case. So I went out and asked, I did focus groups, I did interviews with Afro-Latinas, and I asked them, why does the Afro-Latino population self-identify with the white race? And what I heard is really eye-opening. And essentially the experiences that Afro-Latinos went through told them that there was not something was not entirely right with them and about who they were. And in a way, they were born, they were raised and they grew up not really embracing who they are, right? And by not embracing who you are, and when you have a deep, deep sense of belonging and a need to belong to a community, you try to change who you are. And that's very pervasive in our community, that people, that our Latino sisters and brothers need to change who they are because they want to belong is extremely pervasive. And research is showing exactly that. So let's hear from them. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. We're going to listen to a video right now. And we're going to listen to the experiences of Afro-Latinos. It will be a short video, but I want you to pay attention of what you hear from them. Because it's not fair that a white Latina represents what they need to tell us. I can refer to what I have heard, but it's extremely important that we hear from our Afro-Latinos, from them directly. So here we go.
My mother is Puerto Rican. She is very light-skinned. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she made a comment to me kind of in passing, and she said, "Oh, that's because of your Black father." When I told this to my mother, she began to cry. And she said, "Well, you know, not everyone is happy that I am with your father because he is dark-skinned."
I remember a fellow student who told me there are not that many Black people in this class, and there were a lot of us who were Latino, and I felt I was taken aback by that because I said, "Well, we're Black too," and he said, "Not really. You look Black, but you're not really Black."
My father had me straighten my hair because it was too difficult to manage.
Every day I see my Afro-Latino students struggling with whether or not they should embrace their Black side or whether or not they should embrace their Latino side.
For a person of African descent who is Latino, there is that tension of being Black and being Latino, which sometimes is seen as separate, but it should really be something as equal.
One of the biggest things that we should be doing is listening to each other's stories. And if we do, we'll notice that we have a lot of the similar struggles and histories and, you know, great jokes and family stories.
I think that it's very important for upcoming generations to be able to say that they recognize who they are completely. I do think that there is a divide sometimes, and I just think it comes from a lack of understanding that we are more equal than we are different.
My mother is Puerto Rican.
So I found this video to be extremely powerful. This is a video from CNN. And we need to hear from our Afro-Latinos and their own experiences a lot more. We need to do things differently. And what I hear in that video are childhood experiences with loving parents who just did the best they could in an environment that was not very friendly with them. I hear a lot of hope. I hear we need to be heard. We appreciate to be heard. We appreciate this space to be heard, right? But there is also hope. We can do this together. I don't hear resentment at all in that video. What I hear is it's important to honor who we are individually, to understand who we are, to accept who we are, and to work together, to unite essentially together with hope and move forward together. That's what I get from that video, and I find that it's extremely powerful. So it's time for our community to do things differently. And part of that is making new decisions in our head, right? Healing our own divisions and understanding that all of us have a privilege. Let me tell you, when I first came to this country 20 years ago, I didn't feel privileged. I felt I'm an immigrant. I trip over when I speak English. I'm self-conscious. I'm not confident. I had all these mental things going on. That's why we put together this class, right? This is about the path of struggle with our own inner stories that we all go through. But over time, I learned that, wow, I am extremely privileged. I work for huge companies. I had access to education. The way I look really opened spaces for me that are not available to Afro-Latinos yet. So we are all privileged. It depends on the context where you are. So something for you to reflect at this point in time is, what is your privilege? Right now, you have a privilege. Think about a person in your mind who has less privilege than you, and who is in your circle and who you can support, because we're going to take some action with that. So keep that person in mind. And the third part of the conversation is, how do we build that new collective? How do we do things different? How do we start supporting each other? And we talked about being aware of colorism, healing our own biases, understanding that division lives inside our heads. So we have the responsibility individually to work within ourselves to transform our own biases, our own colorism towards others, and that sense of division in the Hispanic community. But then that's not enough, as we said. The inner transformation is necessary, but that's not enough. We need to work together differently. And let me show you some statistics. I love numbers, as you can tell. So when you take a look into the US Hispanic population, 30%, Ramiro Cavazos just said this before, 30% of our population is younger than 18 years old. A Latino turns 18 in this country every 30 seconds. This means that we have a lot of up and coming Latinos who are going to be first generation into academia, into professional spaces, and they need mentors. Now, unfortunately, there are not enough older, I will say, Latinos to be mentors. Look at the numbers. There are not enough Latinos who can mentor all of the young Latinos who are up and coming. So what do we do with this? We have to, there is no choice, step outside of our Hispanic community and ask for help. And that's where allyship becomes extremely important. Look at the population numbers for US non-Hispanic whites. What you can see here is that there is a bigger portion of the white population, non-Hispanic white population, who is more mature, more experienced, and who is in those positions of influence, power, and experience, which are extremely relevant to mentor our young Latinos. So this means we have no choice than to work together within the community and with the broader community outside our Hispanics. And that's what we call allyship, and it's the art of building bridges. So through my research and my book and everything that I have done working with Latinas, I learned that it's very hard for our Latinas to go and do the ask. It's very uncomfortable. It feels unnatural. It feels forced. And let me tell you, that's okay. We all go through that. But as everything in life, skills can be developed when you practice, practice, practice. So we're going to show you a roadmap of how you build those bridges with those allies who are ready to help you. Number one, identify who can be your potential ally. Go to non-Hispanics. We need them, as I said before. people who are more senior, who you admire, or you can learn something from them, because that helps the conversation to be more natural. And also find the commonalities with them, right? So look for somebody who is more experienced, who is in a position of higher power, who you admire, who has done something great, and who you can reach out to. Number 2 is reach out and ask for time. So how do you do that? So here are 2 ways to do that. I would appreciate 20 minutes of your time to learn about your journey. People love to talk about their journey. So asking for 20 minutes is not a huge commitment. It's something that can be done quickly, and it's not intimidating for any busy person. You can also say something like, I admire how you have been helping the community with this project. Can we find 20 minutes for me to learn how you went about it? So be genuine, do your ask, and make it about them. It's not, I want to talk to you because I need help. No, it's about, I want to learn from you. Can you show me the way? Can you show me how you did it? And number 3, become a natural networker. I was not born speaking English. I was not born a networker. I learned it, okay? And if I learned it, you can learn it too. So listen with attention. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means it's more listening than talking. Second, prepare your ask. Be ready to answer the question, how can I help you? But only offer it if you're invited to. Make it about them, their journey, they're sharing with you. But if they ask, be ready with a very specific ask. How can I help you? Boom, and you're ready. And number 3, always remember, and this is something that somebody told me and stayed with me, you are not going to ask for marriage in the first date. Never do that. So you need to go slow. You need to focus on building the relationship with that person. And over time, you will see the results. So now, time to take action. What immediate step can you take today to both support another Latina or Latino and to ask for the support you need for yourself? So I ask you to think about a person earlier in the presentation. So think about that person. Please today reach out. A text, an email, a phone call, but reach out to that person compared to whom you have some privilege and offer your help or offer to just listen to them. A lot of people need to be heard. They need to tell their story. That's very healing. So that could be something that you could do for them. And also think about, and this may feel more uncomfortable, right? This is about asking, who can you ask for help? Those 20 minutes. Think about that person and commit today to take action, not tomorrow, today. So to wrap up, this is something that I love this quote. We all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all the threads of the tapestry are equal in value, no matter what their color. And I invite my Latino sisters and brothers to really feel equal. It starts with us. We must feel equal deep inside for change to happen. Thank you so much. That's my contact information. Let's keep in touch. And I want to say something else, another quote. Jose Hernandez, because I'm going to be an author, Jose Hernandez is an Argentinian author. He wrote Martín Fierro, and this is what he said. Los hermanos sean unidos, porque esa es la ley primera. Si entre ellos se pelean, los devoran los de afuera. So in English, I will make my best effort to translate this to English. It means, let brothers and sisters be united, because that's the first law. If they fight among themselves, the outsiders will devour them. So we are together on this. Thank you for your time. Always remember, inner transformation first, but that's not enough. Work as a new collective. Thank you, and we're going to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Wow, Valeria, what a way to close the series and this session. That quote, de verdad que me paró los pelos. It's so, I mean, that's the only way I can explain it. It gives me goosebumps. It's so powerful. And it's really the perfect illustration of what we wanted our audience to take away today. And it's that as Latinos, Latinas, we must unite, and we must help elevate each other. And part of that journey and part of that is actually also accepting our own privilege. And I was listening to what you said in terms of, you being in the United States for 20 years and just kind of coming to grips of your own privilege because you didn't feel privileged, right? We kind of think about the ways that we have experienced exclusion, the ways that we have not been able to advance, et cetera, but we don't think about the elements of who we are that actually have given us advantage. And so that was a big journey for me. It was actually a mentor of mine who actually was instrumental in getting me to see my own privilege. The fact that I'm Puerto Rican, the fact that I have US citizenship by birth, that alone, it's privilege. Yeah. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, what do you suggest to our audience in terms of, going through that process of identifying their own privilege and how they can use that to help others?
That's such a great question. And I can share from my own experience, what really made the difference for me was to listen. So when I embarked on the book journey and I spoke to 55 Latinas, some of them I knew for 15 years, and I had never spoken deeply about their stories. And I was blown away. So listening from that really heart felt space, authentic, safe, even your friends, you will be surprised. People around you who you think you know, you don't know them, and it starts with listening, being open, creating that space where you can really understand where they come from, where they are willing to share with you their experiences. And that's the way that I learned how privileged I am, just by, being able to have those painful conversations. Those conversations were not comfortable. There was a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, right? A lot of stories never told that surfaced up. Mm-hmm. So that's what we need more of. It starts with listening.
And I hear the listening and I hear courage, right? It takes courage. And it takes also that vulnerability on both ends to be able to have these conversations, which kind of takes me to the next and last question is that, what can each one of us do to combat colorism?
First of all, we need to accept that it's real and that it exists. And we need to accept that it's one of the major diseases in the Hispanic community. So accepting is a big piece. And I saw here a question coming up in the chat that says, how can I keep from not being resentful when I'm different, right? So unfortunately, the system, the society has not been very accepting of people of color. We know that. We are aware of that. So that sent a message to those kids as they grew up that there was something wrong with them or with who they were. So if you were, if you went through that experience, there is trauma in you. There is healing that needs to take place. So you may want to seek for help. If you feel resentful and it's not something that you can manage on your own, you may want to ask for that help. Do not be afraid to ask for help. There is healing that needs to happen. There is trauma. There are words unspoken that need to be spoken. Things need to be named to be healed. So it's extremely important that if you're feeling that, you take action. Now, for those of us who were privileged not to have those experiences, we have also a responsibility here. And it's part of our responsibility doing something with the privilege we have. And it starts with healing our own divisions, healing our own racism, healing our own bias. And there is a lot of information out there that you can go, how to understand which biases do you have and how to identify, be aware of your biases, but also reach out to Afro-Latinos and don't empower them. No one needs to be empowered. They only need to be asked, how can I help you? Open the door for them, let them do the magic. They have the power, they are prepared, they are ready. As white Latinos, our responsibility is to open the door, to make the space, if there is another chair opening up, to bring an Afro-Latino. And something that I started to do that is a bolder move, I have to recognize, is to call it out. When I'm invited to events or to be a speaker, I always look who the audience is, who the other speakers are. And I'm looking for the Afro-Latinos in the room. Do we have 25% Afro-Latinos in the room? Do we have 25% Afro-Latinos in this publication? And if we don't, I gracefully, kindly call it out. We need to help each other heal this together. And it starts with listening, asking, how can I help? And then calling it out.
I love what you said, Valeria, about really taking a stand for our Afro-Latino community and really being a voice for them as well. It just comes to, being mindful and being inclusive and understanding that we all can elevate together. The one point I wanted to make about the resentment, whether it's due to colorism, for whatever reasons, right? It's caused by trauma. And this is something that I've personally come to find out, is that at the end of the day, the only person that gets hurt by that resentment is the individual. It's us. Yes. And so there is that opportunity to seek that healing, because through that healing, you elevate yourself. You're not giving power to the people that hurt you. So for whoever said that, I applaud you and commend you for calling it out. And now that you have that awareness, is getting that healing will take you through the next step.
And Lori, one more thing that I wanted to mention is the healing and also the forgiveness. There is a lot of forgiveness work that needs to take place, and always reach out and ask for help to professionals if you're struggling with something. There is this myth in our community that it's not okay to ask for help. We need to change that.
Yes, absolutely. And so, Valeria, millón de gracias from the bottom of my heart, mi hermana. I just have had such a wonderful journey going through this with you and the rest of the Nationwide team and the PMM team. They know who they are, building all of these sessions throughout 2020. I want to encourage our audience to think about how you can use your privilege to help elevate others, how you can assertively help our community overcome colorism, and how you can nurture a collective mentality within your own circle of influence. Because we all achieve more when we come together as one. On behalf of Nationwide, have an extraordinary end to your 2021 and best of wishes in the new year, because yes, we only have a few weeks left out of this year, and we hope to see you in person next year. And remember that Nationwide is on your side. Thank you, Valeria.
Thank you, Lori. Un abrazo. Gracias.
Un abrazo.
Gracias.
Chao.